Hey there, seventh graders. Let's move on in your packet. It's nice to talk to you guys again. Start out our second week of quarantine here. So hopefully this week we will finish up this packet and get through review. And then we might start talking about learning some new stuff. So the document we left off on was Virginia plantation. Find a picture of the Virginia plantation. Question number one, what was information in the illustration? Suggests the plantation was self-sufficient. If you remember, self-sufficient, the meaning of that word is they provide the necessary materials, whatever it is you need to survive is provided for within this village, everything they need to meet your basic needs of survival. So you have pastures, you have crops, you have food, you have a carpenter, you have a spinner, you have every job, everything you might need is all performed within the borders of this village. They didn't have to go outside. They didn't have to trade for anything if they didn't want to. Now, of course, they did trade, but this village was entirely self-sufficient. They produced everything they needed. Why was location on a waterway important to the economic success of the plantation? To transport crops, right? To get crops, especially tobacco was your cash crop at this time. They're not going to consume all this tobacco on this plantation, so they would produce it and they put it on these ships and send it off to Europe. Europe was very much desiring tobacco at this time. Tobacco was a luxury item, was something that was very scarce back in Europe, and they were willing to trade for it and pay good money for it. Finally, plantation owners argued that large numbers of laborers were needed to carry out work on the plantation. State two ways that labor would have been used on this plantation. And just about everywhere, picking tobacco in the fields, helping the blacksmith, helping the carpenter, any of those, working in the tannery, working in the different kitchens or whatever it might be. All these places needed extra labor, and that extra labor often came from slaves, as the first slaves came to the Americas in the 1600s. Good, let's move on to the next document, Triangular Trade Routes, 1700s. Let's take a look at the picture here, understand it. British colonial exports are represented by the lighter shade here, are goods leaving the colonies here, and then imports are goods coming back into the colonies here. Notice a lot of the goods that are leaving the colonies are raw materials, and a lot of the goods coming back into the colonies are manufactured goods. Identify one export from the British colonies to Great Britain during the 1700s. So here are the British colonies right here. And remember, exports are goods leaving the country, which is this line right here. Oh, I'm crossing them all out. And what goods would they be? Well, you could write any of these: lumber, furs, fish, oil, whale oil, indigo, tobacco, gunpowder, and I just put my line through it again. Any of those goods would be exports. Good. What is one characteristic of British mercantilism? That's what you see happening in this map. This map of the triangular trade routes. Now, British mercantilism definitely benefited Great Britain. So you could write that down. It benefits or economically benefits Great Britain. You could write down that they get cheap raw materials from the colonies and then bring them to Great Britain. That Great Britain produces manufactured goods. The colonies benefit Great Britain or make Great Britain money. Mercantilism is that attempt to make as much money as you possibly can, and that's what it was all about. Making money for the colony, for Great Britain. Which war resulted from the objections of the 13 colonies of British mercantilism? We all know that. Of course, is the Revolutionary War. Now let's look and move on to our last document for today. Base your answers to questions 1 through 4 on the drawing below. In your knowledge of social studies, you have a New England village. Name 2 industries shown on the map. You have many industries. You might not know what they all are, but the mill would grind, grain into flour at the mill. Chandler actually made candles. Cooper, does anybody know what a Cooper did? Cooper actually made wooden barrels. Blacksmith forged iron, so made tools, made horseshoes, different things like that. Furniture maker, shoe shop, any of those you could have write down. What was the purpose of the stocks? Let's find the stocks here. And you might not be able to see what they were, but you put your arms through these holes on the stocks and your head through it. And people throw garbage and rotten food at you and stuff like that. Stocks were meant to punish you. So for discipline, that's what I would write down there. Why was the mill located on a river? Here's a river coming down through here. And notice the mill right here with the water wheel here. So the river actually was a source of energy for the mill, would help power some of their machines, but also for trade, transportation, transporting raw materials and goods. I would take that as well. You could write that down as well. Final question of the day, based on the information presented in the drawing, describe one way New England villages depended on one another. Well, I mean, take a look at it. Everything is provided for here. The person who ran the mill, depended on the chandler for candles, for light, for furniture. Some of his machines, the blacksmith to help repair machines or even make machines. Cooper to make barrels to put the flour in and different things like that. So all of these different places, not many of them made everything they needed, but what they needed was made in the town, in the village. And that's how they relied on each other for survival. Sorry it took so long to get this third video out to you guys. I've been having some internet issues, but I think I got it fixed. I hope you're all well. I'll put out some more videos this week and hopefully get through the rest of this packet before vacation. I know it seems like you're on vacation right now, but actually spring break doesn't start until next week. So we'll get through the rest of your packet this week, and then we'll talk about what to look for after break. I hope you're all doing well, and I'll talk to you soon.